The first time she called the cops on me, I was standing in my own driveway holding a box of coffee mugs, and 5 patrol cars rolled up like I had robbed a bank instead of packing a kitchen. Across the street, Beverly Carrington stood on her lawn in a cream-colored pantsuit, sunglasses big enough to hide a felony, pointing at me like I was the neighborhood's most wanted man. What she did not know was that 20 minutes earlier, I had signed the last closing document on almost every house she thought she controlled, and by sunset, the woman who spent years acting like the queen of Cedar Hollow was going to find out she had just become my problem. Now, before you think I woke up one morning and decided to wage war against the homeowners association for fun, let me back up, because I was not that guy, not even close. My name is Nathan Whitaker. I was 52, a systems analyst from Ohio, the kind of man who alphabetizes batteries in the junk drawer and gets excited when a spreadsheet formula works on the first try. Wild life, I know. But 2 years before all this happened, my wife, Elise, died after a long fight with lymphoma, and after she was gone, the house we had shared did not feel like home anymore. It felt like a museum where every room had one exhibit: grief. Her reading chair, her blue coffee cup, the little wind chime she loved, even though it sounded like a fork falling downstairs. All of it kept reminding me that I was still here and she was not. So I sold the place, packed up what I could stand to keep, and bought a small ranch house in Cedar Hollow, a tidy little neighborhood outside Fort Wayne with maple trees, brick mailboxes, and lawns so perfect they looked like they were afraid of disappointing someone. I thought it would be peaceful. I thought maybe I could learn how to breathe again. Then Beverly knocked on my door 13 days after I moved in. I smelled her before I saw her, this sharp cloud of expensive perfume and hairspray. And when I opened the door, there she was, late 50s, blonde helmet hair, pearl earrings, clipboard tucked under one arm like a weapon. "Welcome to Cedar Hollow," she said, except her smile had no welcome in it. "I am Beverly Carrington, president of the association." She handed me a binder thick enough to stun a raccoon. "These are our community standards. We expect compliance." That word, compliance, came out of her mouth like a threat wearing lipstick. I laughed a little because I honestly thought she was joking. She was not. The binder had rules about grass height, approved mulch tones, garage door visibility, seasonal wreath diameter, and I swear to you, there were 9 approved shades of tan for exterior paint. 9. I remember thinking Elise would have whispered, "Run, Nate, run now." But I was tired and lonely and too numb to pick a fight with a woman in pearls over mailbox trim. So I nodded, thanked her, and shut the door. The first fine came 3 weeks later, taped to my porch before sunrise. My lawn was 3.4 inches tall. The limit was $175. I paid it because grief makes you stupid in quiet ways. The second fine came when my father visited in his old camper van, a dented blue thing he loved more than most people love their children. Beverly fined me $500 for recreational vehicle exposure, which sounded less like an HOA violation and more like a medical condition. Dad read the notice twice, looked at me over his glasses, and said, "Son, I did not survive 2 divorces and a hip replacement to be bullied by a woman who dresses like a church bulletin." That should have been the moment I woke up. But the moment that really did it came a month later, when Beverly fined me $300 for a small copper hummingbird stake beside my front walk. Elise had bought it on our last road trip, back when we were still pretending she was getting better. I stood there holding that notice, and my hands started shaking, not because of the money, but because Beverly had managed to reach into the one soft place I had left and put a price tag on it. That night, I opened my laptop, pulled up county records, HOA filings, property transfers, liens, meeting minutes, everything I could find, and somewhere around 2 in the morning, with cold coffee beside me and Elise's hummingbird on the table, I realized something very simple. Beverly did not own Cedar Hollow. She had just convinced everyone she did. And if fear was the only thing holding her little kingdom together, then I was about to become the man who started pulling out nails. At first, I told myself I was just gathering information, nothing dramatic, just a lonely middle-aged guy with insomnia and too much internet access. But the deeper I dug into Cedar Hollow, the stranger things started to feel. Beverly had issued almost 200 violation notices in less than 3 years. Every homeowner on the block had been fined at least once, most of them multiple times, and nobody fought back because Beverly had perfected this weird little ecosystem of fear where people would rather pay $300 than become her next obsession. The more records I pulled, the more patterns I saw. Elderly couples getting hit hardest. Single parents drowning in penalties. One family forced to repaint their shutters twice because Beverly claimed the blue looked emotionally aggressive. I am not kidding. That phrase was actually written in an email. Emotionally aggressive blue. One evening I walked across the street to meet a retired schoolteacher named Evelyn Brooks after noticing her mailbox had 3 violation stickers on it. She opened the door only halfway, chain lock still attached, eyes nervous like I was a debt collector. I introduced myself and asked if she was okay. She looked over her shoulder before answering, lowering her voice to a whisper. Beverly says my bird bath attracts visual clutter. Then she laughed, this tiny, exhausted laugh that honestly sounded worse than crying. There was something deeply wrong about watching a 78-year-old widow feel terrified over a concrete bird bath. Evelyn invited me in after a while, and over tea, she showed me a stack of fines rubber banded together like unpaid hospital bills. Nearly $4,000 in 18 months. Most of them ridiculous. Wind chimes too loud. Garden flag too large. Decorative stones inconsistent with community aesthetic. One fine because her grandson left a bicycle near the driveway for an afternoon. That was the moment my irritation turned into purpose. Because suddenly this was not about my hummingbird ornament anymore. This woman was bleeding people dry because nobody knew how to stop her. The next HOA meeting happened in Beverly's house, which should tell you everything you need to know already. 20 folding chairs arranged in perfect rows. Cheap cookies on a card table, Beverly sitting at the front beneath a framed painting of herself holding a golf trophy. I wish I were making that up. Her husband, Gerald, sat beside her quietly taking notes like a hostage being forced to witness a crime. I waited until the meeting opened for comments. Then I stood up and asked a simple question. Where exactly does all the fine money go? The room froze. Beverly tilted her head slowly, smiling the way a cat smiles at a bird with a broken wing. Administrative expenses, she said smoothly. Could we see those expenses? I asked. Her smile vanished immediately. Nathan, the board does not answer to random accusations. It is not random if I am requesting financial transparency. Gerald's pen literally stopped moving. One man in the back coughed so hard I thought he was trying to escape through his lungs. Beverly leaned forward slowly, perfume drifting across the room like chemical warfare. You moved here 6 months ago and suddenly think you understand this community? I understand enough to know elderly residents are being fined into panic attacks. Her jaw tightened. Then she gave me this little smile, cold and fake. Careful, Nathan. Communities like this survive because people respect authority. That line stayed with me all night. Respect authority, not protect property values, not maintain standards. Authority. That was what mattered to her. Control. 2 days later, I filed a records request with the county and hired a real estate attorney named Claire Monroe, a woman in her 60s who drank black coffee like it insulted her personally. Claire reviewed the HOA documents in silence for almost an hour before finally leaning back in her chair. Your HOA is basically a private corporation with delusions of royalty, she said. And corporations can be controlled if someone owns enough voting power. I remember staring at her. Then slowly the idea started forming in my head. Insane at first, impossible sounding. The kind of thought you laugh at before realizing you are already halfway serious. Cedar Hollow had 24 homes. 9 were owned by out-of-state landlords. 3 were tied up in probate. 2 families were already trying to move because Beverly had made their lives miserable. Claire looked at me over her glasses. Nathan, are you thinking what I think you are thinking? I smiled for the first time in months. Maybe. The first property I bought belonged to a guy in Arizona who had not visited Indiana in 7 years. He practically accepted my offer before I finished speaking. The second came from a divorcing couple desperate to sell quickly. By month 3, I quietly controlled 5 houses through LLCs. Nobody noticed at first. Then Beverly noticed everything at once. She called emergency meetings, proposed rental penalties, tried adding a $6,000 community protection assessment for non-resident owners. She even hired her nephew to photograph moving trucks entering the neighborhood like he was running surveillance on a cartel. But Beverly's biggest mistake was underestimating how angry everyone already was. Once people realized somebody was finally pushing back, they started talking. Quietly at first. Whispered conversations at mailboxes. Phone calls after dark. Homeowners slipping copies of violation notices into my mailbox like secret evidence in a spy movie. A younger guy named Travis, who rented one of my duplex units, started attending meetings and recording everything. He worked as a paralegal downtown and absolutely hated bullies. Beverly despised him immediately because he kept quoting bylaws back at her in this calm, polite voice that made her look unhinged. One night after a meeting, Travis texted me a photo of HOA financial statements Beverly accidentally left on the table. "Nathan, you need to see this." I drove over immediately. We spread the papers across my kitchen table beside cold pizza and beer, and within 15 minutes, my stomach dropped. Thousands of dollars were being transferred from HOA accounts into a management company called Hollow Horizons Consulting. Guess who owned it? Beverly Carrington. She had been paying herself community consulting fees for years. $32,000 total, maybe more. Fake landscaping invoices. Inflated repair contracts. Kickbacks from her cousin's construction company. It was not just corruption anymore. It was theft. Straight up theft. Travis looked at me and whispered, "Dude, this woman's going to prison." But strangely enough, prison was not what I wanted most in that moment. No, what I wanted was something far more personal. I wanted Beverly standing in front of the entire neighborhood she terrorized while every single lie collapsed around her in real time. And by then, I was only 2 houses away from making that happen. Election night felt less like a neighborhood meeting and more like the final 10 minutes of a hostage movie where everybody already knows somebody is about to snap. By 6:30, the parking lot outside the Cedar Hollow Community Center was overflowing. Pickup trucks lined the curb, folding chairs scraped across hardwood floors, and for the first time since I moved there, people were actually talking to each other instead of hiding behind blinds. You could feel it in the room, this strange mix of nerves and excitement, like the whole neighborhood had finally decided to exhale at the same time. Beverly arrived exactly 7 minutes late, wearing an ivory blazer and enough makeup to patch drywall cracks. She walked in like she still owned the building, chin lifted high, Gerald trailing behind her carrying binders with both hands like a nervous intern. But the second she stepped inside and saw the local news camera near the back wall, I caught the smallest flicker of panic cross her face. Good. Let her feel it for once. She marched straight to the podium and slammed her gavel down hard enough to make people jump. "This emergency session is now in order," she announced sharply. "Before we begin, I want to address the defamatory rumors being spread by certain individuals attempting to destabilize our community." Somebody in the back muttered, "Here we go." Beverly ignored it. Cedar Hollow is under attack by outside investors trying to destroy property values, and actually, I interrupted calmly from the third row. That part is technically true. The room went dead silent. Beverly looked at me slowly, the way people look at smoke before realizing the whole kitchen is on fire. "Nathan," she said tightly, "you are out of order." "No, Beverly," I said, standing up slowly. "I think for the first time in a very long time, I am exactly in order." Then I walked to the front of the room carrying a small cardboard box filled with property records, meeting minutes, and financial statements, and I swear you could hear people stop breathing. Beverly stepped back from the podium slightly. "What exactly are you doing?" "Finishing this," I said. I connected my laptop to the projector behind her, and the first slide appeared on the screen. A map of Cedar Hollow. 12 homes highlighted in blue. Murmurs spread immediately across the room. Beverly stared at the screen, confused at first, then slowly horrified as realization crept across her face. "No," she whispered. I turned toward the audience. "Over the last 8 months, Through legal purchases and proxy agreements, I acquired controlling interest in Cedar Hollow properties, which means as of tonight, I own the majority vote in this HOA. The room exploded. People talking over each other, chairs scraping. Somebody actually yelled "Holy hell" loud enough to echo. Beverly looked like the floor beneath her had disappeared. "You cannot do that," she snapped. Claire stood calmly from the front row holding a folder. "Indiana corporate statute says otherwise." Everything was done legally. Beverly's face turned pale beneath all that foundation. Gerald looked physically sick. Then I clicked to the next slide. Bank transfers appeared on the projector. $32,000 moved into Hollow Horizons Consulting. Fake landscaping invoices. Inflated contractor payments. Kickback percentages highlighted in yellow. Every ugly little secret glowing 10 feet tall behind her. Beverly tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. "Those documents are fake." Travis stood up immediately. "Actually, they came directly from HOA financial records and county filings. We already forwarded copies to the district attorney this morning." Gerald suddenly stood up, so fast his chair tipped backward. "Bev," he whispered harshly, "you told me those payments were legal." Beverly spun toward him. "Sit down, Gerald." But he did not. For the first time in maybe 20 years, that man looked at his wife like he was finally seeing her clearly. Then he grabbed his coat and walked straight out of the building without another word. Honestly, that was the moment Beverly lost. Not the evidence. Not the votes. Gerald leaving. Because suddenly she was not a queen anymore. She was just a scared woman standing alone in front of a room full of people she spent years humiliating. Evelyn Brooks rose slowly from her chair near the back. Tiny woman, trembling hands, bird-shaped earrings swinging beside her face. "Beverly, do you remember fining me $400 because my grandson left his bicycle near the mailbox for 2 hours? Beverly stared at her silently. Evelyn nodded once, eyes wet. "I cried in my kitchen for 3 days after that." One by one, people started standing. The Ramirez family talking about repainting their shutters twice. A veteran describing how Beverly threatened to lean over a flag bracket. A single mother explaining how she skipped insulin doses 1 month to pay HOA penalties. Every story landed like another brick tied to Beverly's ankles. And through all of it, Beverly just stood there breathing harder and harder, eyes darting around the room looking for somebody, anybody, to save her. Nobody did. Finally she snapped. "You people needed me," she shouted suddenly. "You would all live in chaos without me. Look at yourselves. Trash cans in driveways, chalk on sidewalks, weeds everywhere. People like you ruin communities." "No," I said quietly. "People like you ruin them." Silence hit the room again. Then I stepped beside the podium and looked around at everybody there. "Here is my proposal. Effective immediately, Beverly Carrington is removed as HOA president pending criminal investigation. All fines issued within the last 3 years are frozen for independent review. And within 60 days, we dissolve Cedar Hollow HOA permanently." For a second nobody moved. Then hands started rising everywhere. Fast. Almost every person in the room. The vote was overwhelming. Beverly looked around wildly, stunned at how completely her power had vanished. She grabbed her purse with shaking hands. "You will regret this," she hissed at me while storming toward the exit. "Communities need rules." "Maybe," I said, "but they do not need tyrants." She shoved the doors open and disappeared into the parking lot where reporters immediately swarmed her beside that ridiculous white Lexus. Inside the room something strange happened. People started talking. Really talking. Laughing. Hugging. Someone ordered pizza. Kids ran through the aisles with sidewalk chalk they had smuggled in like contraband. Evelyn sat beside me after a while and smiled softly. "Elise would have liked this," she said. I looked around the room, at neighbors finally acting like neighbors again, and for the first time in years, the grief inside me loosened a little. Not gone, never gone, but lighter somehow. Like maybe healing does not happen all at once. Maybe sometimes it happens in crowded rooms with bad fluorescent lighting and cold pepperoni pizza while watching a bully finally lose. Beverly eventually took a plea deal. Fraud. Embezzlement. Restitution payments. Cedar Hollow dissolved 6 months later. Today, the neighborhood looks nothing like it used to. Kids draw on sidewalks. People leave Christmas lights up year-round just because they can. Evelyn's bird bath still sits proudly in her front yard. And every spring, right beside my porch, I hang Elise's little copper hummingbird where everybody can see it. Sometimes people online tell me I went too far. That buying half a neighborhood just to destroy an HOA was obsessive, petty, maybe even cruel. Honestly, maybe they are right. But if somebody spent years squeezing fear into every corner of the place you were trying to rebuild your life in, if they turned grief into weakness and community into control, what exactly would you have done different? Let me know in the comments, because I genuinely want to hear it. And if you have ever dealt with an HOA nightmare, a power-hungry neighbor, or somebody who mistook authority for ownership, hit subscribe and share your story below. Trust me, some of the wildest battles people fight never make the news. They happen right across the street.